Peter, I am thrilled to be sitting across from you here. Thank you for making this happen. I hope you had fun today with Matt. That was cool to watch.
My pleasure, David. And yes, I did have fun. It's always good having one's photograph taken.
It's been nearly 30 years since you got started in this thing. It's going to be 30 next year.
But who's counting?
Who's counting? When you put on that gold makeup and that suit, that mechanical head, did you have any idea that we'd still be talking about this 30 years later?
None whatsoever.
Not at all.
David. None whatsoever. And I have to tell you, the story starts way before that. When there was no mechanical head, there was no glowing eye, no flanged voice. It was just the movie. And there wasn't even a franchise. I think the first time I ever heard about Stargate as a franchise was from the mouth of a young story editor on a show called Neon Rider that I worked on. His name was Brad Wright. You may have heard of him.
I think so.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he passed through, and I distinctly remember Brad running the idea of acquiring the rights to the franchise for television in the parking lot of Neon Rider after shooting one day.
To you?
Yes, to me. It was just Brad and myself, to my recollection, and I enjoyed the movie, so I didn't think it was the most fanciful of ideas, but who gave him a shot in hell? I didn't. He pulled it off.
Did he give any indication that he had you in mind for anything at that point?
Oh, none whatsoever.
He was just talking to you?
This was polite conversation,
right, okay.
Following a shoot day on a different series entirely. And it was my first series.
Well, it was.
And it was his probably first, I'm not sure if it was his first writing job as a writer, but he was known then as a junior story editor. So I guess I was in on the ground floor of this thing, but no, I had no idea that I would have anything to do with it. First of all, I had no idea that he could pull it off.
Right. Yeah. So this is 95, I'm guessing, around there?
This was prior to 95. We probably started shooting in 95, I think.
The film came out in 94.
Yeah.
So you would have both had a
We would have
chance
both
to see
seen the
it.
film, yes,
Yeah.
yes. In fact, I was a fan of the film, and I presume he was too.
Yeah.
I did think it fell apart a little bit in the last 15 minutes. I think they rushed the ending, but by then I was hooked on the idea. Yes, absolutely. And I have a background in archaeology.
I did not know
I
this.
do.
Really?
I grew up with an interest in it.
Okay.
When I grew up in Jamaica, my home was very near to what was then known as the Arawak Museum. It was a museum dedicated to the existence of the indigenous people of Jamaica. And I used to be able to go through the bush and watch archaeologists dig graves, and middens and stratified deposits around this museum. I also had a subscription to National Geographic, which can do it as well. Combined those two things, and I had a natural interest in archaeological things from the distant past. So when Stargate came along, the whole Egyptology thing was it was a perfect fit, like a Lego block.
Could you have seen yourself taking a career in archaeology?
I could, as a matter of fact. I studied at a university. Okay. So I went on to, I have a geography and archaeology degree from Nottingham University in England. And it's in me.
So how old were you when you decided a career in acting would be worth pursuing? Was this after that, or
it was after that? It was round about the
university?
time I figured out that it's very difficult to translate a degree in geography and archaeology into making a living. So I sort of segued into. I was in a new country as well. By then, my family had moved from Jamaica to Canada. And I was, searching for my foothold here.
Were you modeling at this point?
I got into modeling after recognizing that herringbone tweed jackets and me did not go very well together. And the 9-to-5 life was a bit of a stretch for someone with my wide imagination. I fell into, you know the joke, you know the old joke, so you're an actor, what restaurant do you work at?
What restaurant do you work at, yeah.
That was me. I worked in 1 million restaurants and supplemented that income with modeling, which eventually took off and eventually, through one thing and another, led to the acting career.
Can I ask you about a role other than Apophis that sticks with you to this day, that you're proud that you did?
Oh, you know what?
Something that really resonates with you?
I think you started off this thing by saying 30 odd years. It's been more than that I've been an actor, and there are several. But why don't we start at the beginning? The very first speaking part I had in anything was in a 2-part miniseries called Hoover versus the Kennedys, the Second Civil War. If you're from the Toronto area, you might know it. It was shot here, and I played a young Harry Belafonte, which could not have been a sweeter deal for me.
I can see it.
Yeah, the hair and makeup people had to etch out the receding hairline that Harry is known for, and the little peak. But there's a physical resemblance of which I'm proud.
But getting into the headspace of someone who exists, and is not dead.
Right, at that time, yes.
At that time,
yes.
What was that mental gymnastics that you had to get through, or what?
Not
what do you
really,
do?
Not really, because Harry is a Jamaican.
Yeah.
And I used to, as a child, drive past the home that legend has it where he grew up. Or spent his time in Jamaica, in that house. So I was able to identify a specific house. Add to that the fact that he attended the same high school I went to in Jamaica. So there was a definite connection there. And my mother, as someone who was an educator, happened to have taught Harry's eldest daughter.
Wow. In
school. So there were many little touchstones, this degrees of separation thing.
So did he or his family ever, their opinion of what you did ever get back to you?
It never did.
Never did.
No. But my opinion of him remains extremely high. So I was more than honored to have Belafonte on my resume.
I would have been shaking in my boots nonetheless, because it's like this is, especially if it's someone that you admire and respect, you want to get it right. At least an honest portrayal of something. It's because it's not him. It is a version of him that you are doing. It's your interpretation of him.
Except it was sort of a documentary series about the period when J. Edgar Hoover and the Kennedys were interlocked, shall we say, in competition around the whole concept of civil rights and Vietnam and that sort of thing. It was almost as fraught politically as we find ourselves now.
Humans are going to human, aren't they?
Well put.
So 1996 comes along.
Yeah.
Brad Wright and Jonathan Glassner have both gone to MGM with this idea for a show about this certain alien ring.
Yes.
And MGM says, you should both do it. They get together, they write Children of the Gods. What's the first thing you hear about this thing?
First thing, I think, would have been the audition, which, if memory serves me correctly, happened shortly before Christmas of that year.
So did you know? So you knew Brad was attached, and this is the thing that
I did not know Brad was attached.
Okay.
What I knew was that MacGyver was attached.
Yes.
And I had previously done an episode of MacGyver. MacGyver and his good buddy Michael Greenburg were attached. Two names I did recognize from having worked on MacGyver. I was told that the audition was for a character named Tilk. So I go into the audition, Teal'', a very odd name.
Did not know
for
this.
a character. And I read for the part of Tilk. I left there thinking I had done a fair job. Can't be disappointed with the audition I gave. But I didn't hear anything for a couple of weeks.
Did you do this in LA, Vancouver?
This was in Vancouver.
Toronto? Okay.
This was in Vancouver. A couple of weeks later, I get a call back. But it's not for the role of Tilk. It's for a character called Apophis. And I go, oh, wow, there's a turn up for the books. I had no idea who Tilk or Apophis were.
You didn't?
Obviously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, archaeology background, I wasn't just so sure, just not Egyptology focus.
Well, Egyptology, but Apep was more of the name for...
Yes, that's right.
Yes, for Apophis, than Apophis at that time.
They go by several names.
Yes, several
That's right.
names. And of course, Ra was the extant bad guy in the show Stargate.
This is his brother.
And my research on the mythology of it tells me that it stems from Greek mythology before the Egyptian mythology, and that I stand to be corrected. It's been a long time since these guys walked the face of the earth. Tells me that Ra was the sun god's ruler of the day, and Apophis or Apep was the serpent god, ruler of the night. And yes, they were brothers. You're absolutely right. And their conflict didn't resolve itself every night, but Ra always prevailed come dawn. When the sun rose, Apep was vanquished, only to return the following night. And every night they would join in this battle, and in perpetuity. So,
Wow.
I read for Apophis.
What do you think?
Listen, I thought I did another good job.
No,
to
what do you
tell
think
you
of
the truth.
What'd you think of the role? You're looking at this
I
and
still
going,
had no-
oh my gosh, this is outrageous. Where do I sign
No real
up?
idea. No real idea.
Oh, okay.
But at one point, I do remember this, and it might be the stuff of legend by now,
Right.
but I do remember I have this image of Michael Greenburg doing this. Why did I think of that? He looks like Jaye Davidson. I have a similar kind of appearance to Jaye Davidson, and I had shoulder-length dreadlocks at the time, so my hair was even long. I can totally see why he had that revelation mid-audition.
But I can see you carrying yourself, especially when you're familiar with the movie.
Yes, yes.
You know
yes.
that this is apparently the same race of beings. You're going to already have an advantage.
Yes, I think so, and I don't want to stress too much the androgyny of the whole thing, but I'm a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
And I kind of have the, if I do say so myself,
yes.
and I have the kind of aquiline features that Jaye Davidson had, and so I see it as a natural.
No, it worked. So you go in there.
Yeah.
You do this audition.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Remember I mentioned it was Christmas time?
Yes, sir.
New Year's came and went. Not a word. Nothing,
Okay.
nothing. I think it was like late January when
Oh
I
my God.
found out finally that this hadn't gone away, and I was going to get the role of Apophis. I had no idea what kind of costume I was going to wear, but they did have one proviso on the casting. They said, would you be willing to cut your hair? Now, you get very attached to dreadlocks. It took me 5 years to grow those dreadlocks. I grew them organically. But I said, yes, I would be more than willing, because I had heard that Stargate, first of all, it was Stargate, and secondly, it had been pre-sold for 4 seasons, I think.
4 seasons, 2, then 4, then 5.
Oh, well.
In a few matter of weeks.
Yeah, yes. And I thought, hey, that sounds like the promised land. So let's go with that. Yes, I'll cut my hair. No further questions.
Wow.
I still have all that hair, by the way, in a plastic bag in a storage unit somewhere in Vancouver.
You spent a lot of time with that hair.
I did.
Absolutely, man. So, what is your impression of this guy? Is he a bad dude?
He was, I think I was told right off the bat that he was going to be the nemesis. So, there's a, I guess a rule of thumb in the audiovisual world that if you can't be one of the good guys, be the bad guy. I was totally on board.
How was that playing that smarmy boombox voice, snake in the head? Was it? It's visually, it's over the top, completely outrageous.
Yes.
And at the same time, you nail it. So, what goes on in your head? Is it kind of like what Shatner has to do when he's playing Kirk? They're throwing foam rocks at him. I've just got to buy it, and the audience will go where I go.
Thank you for mentioning Star Trek, because Star Trek was also it sort of created a template for science fiction series to go from, and on top of that template, they laid several. I want to say two-dimensional characters, but they weren't two-dimensional. They were multi-dimensional, but they had a cartoon.
That's right.
Aspect to them, cartoonish aspect
There's
to them.
There's a Saturday morning quality to it of adventure.
Yes. It became quickly apparent that I was going to be inhabiting a world built around those bare bones. The costumes.
Christina McQuarrie. My
God bless her soul.
The Mickey Mouse ears turned in.
You had
the bare chest.
You had to bring the Mickey Mouse ears into it.
You wear those clothes. Those clothes don't wear you.
Listen to me,
and Vitiari as well.
Do you know, there's a book out there, Christina McQuarrie, I think, a book on her costumes. She did say that Apophises' costumes were her favorite. It's in the book. There is I think I have a scan of the quote somewhere.
Please,
yes,
absolutely.
It's in one of those books. She really, really enjoyed doing the Apophis costumes, and as we know, there were several. There was a ceremonial one and the warrior one. Both of them introduced in Children of the Gods, and several others followed in the first couple of seasons, and onward.
The Jaffa costume. I've worn one. It is no picnic.
No, it's no picnic. From the underwear right up.
Yeah. You have to put it on in a certain order, otherwise you completely screw it up.
Yes.
And pieces have a way of falling off. You have to keep up with it. What was it like getting into that? Was it pretty easy getting into who this guy was physically? It's like, oh yeah, this guy owns his part of the galaxy and he knows it. And all of these folks, they have no choice but to do what he has to say.
I'll be absolutely honest with you, David. The costume did half my work for me.
Yeah.
It really did. The minute you got in that costume, you had an advantage. You were well ahead of the game. If you don't count so much the fake chainmail, which was some kind of jute hemp blend that scratched your skin. On cold days, we all had long underwear on. As Apophis, I remember also being uncomfortable in the gold spray-painted ballet shoes I had to wear, because that's what they were. The shoulder plates were kind of a bother. They kept shifting. And in many of the shots, you can probably see the t-shirts we had on underneath. You could see the necks as the shoulder plates shifted. This is before we even get to talking about the helmets.
So you and Christopher had these pneumatic pieces.
Oh, you mean the guy that got the part of Tilk? I can understand why I didn't.
I mean, you look at that face, to quote Brad Wright. All right, Teal, moving on.
Absolutely, without question.
What a face. I mean, that totem
And a
pole,
voice.
gorgeous face, and
And a
voice.
voice, yeah.
Without being flanged, even.
Yeah.
Just an extraordinary human being.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people on the earth.
Yes, Christopher is good people, very good people.
Tell me about him.
Listen, I have to say that of all the cast members, Christopher's the one I was closest to, and I have a few stories about Christopher, only one or two that can be told on camera.
Please, tell me one.
Well, one, I'll tell you one, really endeared Christopher to me. There is a particular shot of Apophis and Tilk, a double picture. I think one of us is holding a weapon. I'm not really sure, but it's a great shot of both characters. And once I started doing conventions, I realized that if the photograph had two of us on it, it could have two autographs on it.
That's right.
And if Christopher's autograph was on it, my autograph is automatically worth a good deal more. Right. So I had a bunch of those photographs printed up, and I ran up to Christopher's house, and I said, dude, just see this pen? Sign here for me. 100 times.
You're my Shulva.
He did it without blinking and never asked me for a cut, which I'll never forget. I think we only did 100 though, so out there are probably not much more than 100 of those with the double autograph. Those are special pieces.
He is light. I had dinner with him a couple of weeks ago, and just he deserves every bit of success that he has had.
And he's had a fair bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's even got another gig going now. He did the Kratos thing.
Kratos, the God of War.
Yeah.
He's huge overseas.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Did you get into this character's head at all? Or was it one of those things where it was like, what we're seeing here, I'm going to play into that? This is one of those examples of pretty much pure evil. Where do you go with that as an actor? Like, how deep can you take that? Or is it, you know what, I am going to play into more of the not superficial's not the word that I want, but more of like over the top, and I'm just going to take it for all it's worth all the way down. How did you find your space with that character?
Well, to tell you the truth, man, I didn't see it as that deep.
Okay.
I took the approach that, first of all, by this point we had Darth Vader to bounce our evil off. Darth Vader was the standard bearer at the time it probably still is, for villains. I'll be modest and say that, and agree to that. And there's something cartoonish, something I'm not sure what the actual
very black and white
word
maybe?
is. Yes, it's cut and dried. Obvious about where you have to go with it to be that evil. But I found a wealth of fodder, if you will, in the psychology of spoiled brat, of being a spoiled brat. I think the entitlement you see in people who want to be all domineering is part of what informs true evil.
He was never told no, or at least never told it enough.
Yes, it's really impossible to live in this world today, 2026, without drawing parallels with the politics of today. But I think everyone watching this will know what I mean.
Gold hat at all?
Pretty much everything in gold.
Oh, jeez.
Pretty much anything in gold.
Oh, gosh, no, absolutely. I had not seen the feature.
Yeah.
I saw it Its first night in syndication,
Right,
Children of the Gods. I'd never seen the movie.
See, funny, when you say the feature, I automatically go to
Final Cut.
No.
No.
the movie before the series.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
I
I
had
see,
never
I see.
seen the Stargate movie.
Okay, yeah.
I was a big fan of syndicated programming on my local ABC affiliate on Saturday nights, which was Outer Limits and Poltergeist: The Legacy, both of which were shot there.
Yeah.
And one of them didn't come on one night. Actually, I don't think they both did. It's this 2-hour block, this thing with a big spinning ring, and this gold guy comes through with a bunch of guards. I'm like, what am I watching? Oh, it's Stargate SG. Stargate, that was the movie. This is based on that. And I had to go to church the next day. So I got to the end of the first hour, and we had VCRs back then, and I pressed record, went to bed, got up, went to church, came back home, watched the second hour. That night on NBC, Stargate was the movie of the week.
Yeah.
Glassner told me it wouldn't have been coincidence. That's probably on purpose.
Yeah.
I was hooked.
Dude.
That point forward. And that scene of you coming through, you sell it.
That
You absolutely
really
sell
works.
it.
Actually, I'll share the credit with the characters I'm playing against. You got the entire SG-1 war room. You've got Don Davis in there.
Yeah.
You've got,
Rick.
Rick. Even the extras.
Yeah. Jay Ackerman.
You've got Kowalski. All those
exactly.
guys. They all reflected back.
But your heroes are only as good as
As the villain, as
That's right.
the antithesis of
That's
hero.
correct.
Yeah. So, listen, man. Credit also to the writers for that one, and the costumery and the set design. Listen, it was a gift. It was a gift. But yeah, I'll take that, and it survives in meme form on the internet or to this day.
There's a few good ones.
Yeah, some
Have you
really
seen the
good
one
ones.
of Moe kicking Barney out of the bar in The Simpsons? And it's O'Neill kicking Apophis out, and then Apophis comes in behind him.
I need to have that in my collection.
I will send it. There are some really good ones.
Yes, there's
I
some
have made
really
a couple
good ones.
myself.
Yeah. Oh, good.
There are some intense scenes in this pilot. You and your queen have conspired to steal people across the galaxy. You are literally going, picking up girls, bringing them back, and showing them to your little lady. And you're waiting for the lady to go, I want that one.
Well,
Vitiari.
those were the days. Those
Right.
were the days.
That could not have been an easy scene to shoot. Showtime required, because it's No Limits Network. This is
Right.
this is cable.
Right.
If you want to do the series, you have to have a scene of nudity.
Right.
Brad wanted to create a family show. So if this was going to be on a regular basis in the show, that's not necessarily what he wanted. He wanted everyone to be able to watch it. Like, he grew up with Star Trek, but that was a part of the deal. And you were in that scene. Can you tell me about that day?
Yes, I can, because it's emblazoned in my memory.
Yeah.
First of all, before Vitiari's character Jaye was presented to Apophis, my queen was played by a friend of mine.
Oh.
The queen that
the Jaffa,
the Jaffa queen
who was hosting her.
who's
Yes.
hosting my queen.
Amanette.
Amanette, yes, was actually a friend of mine.
really?
Yes, her name was. I knew her as Mickey. She was a model. Absolutely beautiful girl. Good friend of mine. We had the same agent, as a matter of fact, same modeling agent, and we had done shows together. So it was nice having her beside me. Then the airwoman, who Wetterings, yes, was also played by another friend of mine.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. She is a very good friend of mine. I knew her before I even moved to Vancouver. I knew her from Toronto.
I'm going to have to ask you for her. I'd love to have her on.
Yeah, her name is Rachel.
Okay.
Rachel Hayward. Okay. She is a Vancouver actress and clothing designer. She has a line of clothing.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. We'll definitely have to have. Wow, okay.
Warm, fleecy stuff that she will custom make. Well, she's made me a couple of custom pieces. And she just happened to be the first person that Apophis subdues in order to assess as a potential queen. She didn't make the grade until Violating showed up.
Small world, though.
Yeah. Violating regaled me with stories of her past as a model on the European scene, and we spent a lot of downtime together in between scenes, and then she met Michael Shanks, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. Yeah.
Yeah, but actual shooting of that scene, it was more uncomfortable for her than it was for me, for obvious reasons. She didn't have a stitch of clothing on. The costume department had a rest that day with her. All the emphasis was on the clothing I was wearing, and I was fully clothed. And she was presented to my character nude for appraisal.
For him and for his Gold Queen.
Precisely, and for obvious reasons, she made the grade. And she became the mate Apophis sought.
It's a scary sequence on a host of levels, because this person is being violated and being transformed into something else, and she has just no say. If that scene were shot now, would it play out rather differently, you think?
Actually, there was a part of the scene too where, and I think it probably fits into that category of evil that we were talking about before, where part of the appraisal, I actually violated her presence by sticking my finger in her mouth and rubbing it along her gum line, rather as one would choose a racehorse. Apparently, that was I forget where I got the idea for that, but it made it into the early cut, the pre-edited cut. And I think that's one of the moments that sticks out in my mind as being perhaps the most violating, nudity notwithstanding. Actually putting my finger into the actor's mouth and assessing the strength of the gums. It was disturbing,
Really
and I think it was
intense.
meant to be disturbing.
Yeah.
And it satisfied that aspect. Later edits, I think, lost that scene and lost a little bit of the menace, personally, for me, even though I understand why it was done.
Any other particular memories of the pilot that stand out? I know you guys were out in the GBRD at the Stargate. What a cool effect that was. That whole sequence was just awesome.
You know what? I don't know which sequence you're talking about. Going through the Stargate? The one that you asked me if there were any others. The one with the rings really appeals to me as well. I like the thought of that technology. I still do. And
It's a cool effect.
yeah, great effect.
Still holds up.
Yes, even in still pictures. You know, we talked about the memes. There are no memes on this one, but there are, well, no, actually there are a couple of memes, but they're stationary memes, not moving memes. And there was that, and
The explosion over the hill of the glider going down, going through the Stargate in a huff. That's one of the things that they redid in Final Cut. It's like, oh, this thing goes down, and it's like, okay, we're getting out of here now. In the Final Cut, it's like, I think we better really get moving. Let's go, honey. Let's get out of here.
You're just reminding me that it's due for a rewatch. I need to remind
it's
myself
good.
of some of those,
I would love to sit down and have you do a commentary on that, because there is a lot that goes on there. I would love to be able to share something like that with fans. Would you be interested?
I would, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I do have another memory now. The more we talk, the more I remember.
I'm telling you.
One of the things I liked most about the pilot, and I'm not just saying this because I want him to hear it, was meeting Alexis Cruz. Alexis Cruz is a very deep fellow, and I really, really liked him then, and I like him now, even though I haven't seen him in years. I think he's got his life on another level now. Yes, he's an educator, isn't he? And he's doing very well at it by all accounts. And Alexis and I spent a lot of time post-series traveling around to conventions and generally meeting fans. And it was great to meet him. And he was a good link to the movie, because he was the only one from the movie.
He gave a great deal of legitimacy to the series. Not that the series didn't necessarily need it, but I really feel that he elevated it. And when Eric came in later as well, there was just there was something of a baton handoff from him to you guys, and it works very well.
I like that idea. Someone from the previous series being included in the new one. That's right. Did I just say that?
Ship of Theseus? Anyone? No, absolutely. For those who are listening, no, I completely agree. There's a symmetry to that that's rather poignant. No, Mario Azzopardi.
Yes.
Intense guy.
Yes.
Brilliant, crazy, Machiavellian.
Yeah.
Loud.
Almost
brilliant.
Almost literally. His name could be Mario Machiavelli for all we know, and he's changed it.
Any memory of Mario?
Yeah, man.
Probably several.
Actually, yes, but one in particular stands out. And he looked at me dead in the eye one day. He stopped a take, probably mid-take. And when a director does that, you usually know you fucked up at some point, or messed up, if you want to re-edit that part.
It's okay.
But he came right up to me and he goes, "You're far more powerful when your head is straight than when it's lean, but to one side." So I thought about that for a bit, and I took him at his word. And to this day, I think I hear his admonition when I'm posing for a picture or setting up for a shot. I play with my head angle, and I think straight, dead on is my side, my best side.
Sometimes when a talented person gives you a note, you can't get it out of your head, even when the cameras are off. It's because so much of our power is here.
Yes, yes. And you know what? I really appreciated him getting up into my space to tell me that instead of blasting it out over the whole set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he brings it down.
No, he not only brought it person to person, and he kept it private. Kept it between him and himself and myself, which was good.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Do you regret not being directed by him again?
No, I don't. To tell you the truth, I think he served his purpose. I think he thought he served his purpose.
I think so.
He's not. He doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that likes to go over ground already trodden. You know what I mean? He likes to keep things moving. I haven't seen him in a long time, and he was succeeded by some very good directors.
Some incredible people.
Yes, and as the series evolved, it sort of, I don't want to say it lost its gravitas, but it became less serious and took itself into the realm of levity, a little bit of taking,
whimsy.
some light whimsy. There's a good word.
Yeah.
Perfect. A bit of whimsy.
Rick is very whimsical. Peter DeLuise is whimsical. That's
who I was coming to.
Yeah, for
Right
sure. No,
there,
there is a magic to them, but at the same time, the villain has to chafe them to bring that out. And that's what's so delicious about watching it.
Yeah.
Amanda Tapping once said that you were her favorite villain, and part of what she said was, "You never forget your first."
That's my line. That's my line. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I used to tease Cliff Simon with that one all the time.
Let's take a break and talk about Cliff for a second.
Yeah, let's talk about Cliff. Sure.
He is up there in terms of, so Peter DeLuise told me this,
Yeah.
me and Darren this once when we were up there interviewing them. I've never forgotten it. Cliff is back this season, and his collars are taller and pointier than ever. And that encapsulates the image. Like, he's just evil.
Hey, listen. Let me see now. What did Cliff? You know,
You both dressed awesome as villains. No one did it better than the two of you. And it's up there trying to figure out which one did it better.
we were both fashion models.
Yeah.
We were both fashion
That's
models.
right.
He had one up on me, though. He also danced at the Folie Bergère.
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
Paris.
Yeah, that's right.
Man.
That guy, I'm telling you, we had
man.
a healthy respect for each other and a love for each other. We got to know each other extremely well after the series on these conventions. He's a born traveler,
Yes.
as am I. We both love travel, and we kind of have a similar approach to traveling, excepting I don't take the risks he does. And I was jealous of his risk taking to a certain point.
He also died doing what he loved.
He died doing what he loved, and I know he wouldn't have had it any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. If he had a choice, I agree.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was devastating.
Really?
It was.
Really. We had just been together in England. I've got some nice photographs of the last time we were together. Yeah.
No, there was a presence to him, that damned South African accent of his, that was just so. He's with you in that space. Like, he's not also elsewhere, which is really easy to do when you're at a convention. Your attention is really divided, or when you're with a group of people who all love you and are wanting a piece of you. You know, he took his time with people, and he recognized that this is a moment for us. They can wait.
Just it. That's just
and that was
it.
him.
Listen, man, you know, the South Africa he grew up in
With the
was
apartheid
was a place.
Yeah.
Less said about it, the better.
Yeah.
But Cliff was a man who had his eyes wide open about where he came from. He saw the world, and he grew from where he came from into a man of the world. You know, certain political factions these days have demonized the word global. But global applied to Cliff, and it was a good thing in his hands.
You have to travel it.
Yeah,
You have to see it, the third world as well as the first. You have to see how people live. You have to see, you find out, you know, how they behave, and it's just, he gave so much, and it was such a shame to. I mean, it was awful.
There was never a time where I saw Cliff talk to someone and not be present for that
Right,
person.
exactly.
Yeah, never a time. I watched him with fans. In fact, I would like to think I taught Cliff some things, but Cliff definitely taught me some things.
Really?
Yeah. One of which has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now, but we're both into fitness, for example. Cliff would work out every morning on tour. I don't know, he could live hard, but he also worked out hard.
Yeah.
So he took care of his body. He regenerated himself in the morning after a night before. And he taught me some exercise techniques that I still use to this day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's...
That you can do on the road kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay. You can do away from your when you're outside of your system.
Yes. Your own body weight can sometimes be your gym.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
man. And Cliff was a master at that.
Did you have any idea that they were going to bring you back as quickly as they did?
I didn't
Or was
have
that a
any
surprise?
idea that they were going to kill me as quickly as they did. But they did it with class. They killed me in double episodes, ratings week episodes, series enders, or series openers. They always did it with a sense of importance. So I became used to dying and being reborn, and after a while it didn't bother me.
Okay.
if you buy that.
Well, sure, because I think, look, Brad is one of those who will be the first to say that in sci-fi you're never really dead. And
He always told me that.
There are few characters that exemplify that more than Apophis.
Listen, man, you know about the Asteroid Apophis.
So, yes, 2029, April 13th, I believe, we're expecting a flyby.
A day or
So
two.
you're going to go out there and
give or
divert it
take.
for us?
Well, I don't need to. The actual Earth itself will divert it, so that in 2036 it's got a statistical possibility of actually impacting Earth and wiping out certain people.
Certain people. Have you talked with these guys who named this thing before?
I don't think I've ever spoken with them,
man.
but I've read stories that I've read
Stargate
interviews
fans.
with them. Yes, Tolan and somebody else. Two NASA astronomers who discovered this previously unnamed asteroid. It had a numerical name, and they gave it the name Asteroid Apophis, which I thought was fantastic. And this is precisely because it orbits Earth, goes away, and then comes back again. It goes away and comes back again. And I couldn't be more pleased with that eventuality. And it has kept Apophis alive in the imagination on the internet for at least until 2036.
For sure.
So I've had T-shirts printed. It's front says 2036, and the back says Apophis cometh. I've had people make memes, jokes, all kinds of stuff, and I love it all.
Season 1 ends with a glorious cliffhanger. Not to skip over the Nox, but you did kill SG-1 effectively.
Yeah.
And if it hadn't been for the Nox, they would have been dead. But
Nox, by the way, seems to be one of the more popular episodes in my research.
very much so.
Yeah.
No, they're a cool species. The very young do not always do as they are told. And that whole idea of things,
Cum tria.
that's actually the Alterans in Tin Man.
Oh, is that?
That is Jay Brazeau. That's his character.
Yes,
Armin
yes.
Shimmerman, Frida Betrani, they were the Nox.
Right.
So that was that. And talk about another one where you were in the rain a lot and probably had a lot of undergarments on to protect you because they said it rained all week.
It did.
They were up in mud like this deep in the GVRD. You just grit and bear it. You said that you started noticing that when Serpent would come up in the title, in the episode name, that you would expect a call.
That's right.
Were you surprised with being thrown into attacking Earth by the end of season 1, or was it like this is a natural progression for this character?
Natural progression. In fact, I might have expected it a little sooner, given what happened in the pilot.
Yeah.
There was an actual visit to Earth in the pilot, and it seemed like a natural progression for sure.
Did you know that Alexis was to be written out of the show, and a scene with you and visual effects saved that character?
I did not know that. No, I did not.
So in the second half, you and he get into rings and get beamed away. Mm-hmm. And originally, Alexis, as Chlorel, was supposed to go down with his ship. And Brad and Jonathan and a few of the others were some research was being done, and they were tracking fan feedback, and they're like, we can't kill this character. We have to bring him back. And so with green screen, they already had the elements. So they just stuck him in with you in the ring transporter and went through the gate and got the heck out of there. It's amazing what they have the ability to do when they're doing this fan research and going, you know what? Let's go ahead and pivot on this. So
the writers like to think they know it all, but no. The fans know it all.
Within reason. You can't please everybody.
Yeah.
No, and I'm not even sure you should try to please everybody. But at the same time, you should be listening.
Yes, you should. There are people out there with very, very vivid imaginations. You could probably get stories from those guys. Storylines, I mean.
His downfall began at the destruction of...
His?
Apophises' downfall began with the destruction of his motherships over Earth. The very next thing he did was steal Teal'c's son from him and brainwash him.
Oh, right.
Neil Dennis played Teal'c's son, Ryak. And I thought that was a delicious twist, because now Apophis is taking the knife and just twisting it.
Yes.
It's like, you know what? This is the thing that's most important to you. I'm not going to kill him. Yes. I'm not even going to torture him. I'm going to turn him on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a great twist.
I loved it. I loved the appearance of the more technology, by the way. The Vocuum, was it?
The Vocuum, yes. That was in Rules of Engagement, and you're talking to the troops.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, the American town. Yeah, those were the Gould communication balls.
Oh, yes. Right.
Exactly.
Right,
you did a lot of appearances where you weren't actually present in the episode at all, other than on Gould TV.
Yes, that's true.
You know,
that
was a lot of you in front of like a green screen.
Yes.
And you were, even in one, you were doing just voiceover in Tangent, where the X-301, there's a death glider that gets out of Dodge and starts heading back towards Apophisis' home planet. And Teal'c was like, "This is all new. Before I turned, Apophis would have had no need for this." And you come in and you do a voiceover. Something was always happening where they could bring you in.
You know what's beginning to take shape here is that AI could take my place ultimately.
Well,
I don't want to suggest anything.
Not if fans have anything to say about it.
Yeah, right.
But you know, I mean, so long as the proper residuals are, and you have artistic control.
I will stress, every time I appeared in a Stargate episode where I did not work, I was compensated. So as long as it goes on like that, I'm fine.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. No,
Stargate is a gift that keeps on giving. It was giving then, it's still giving now.
This is true. You know, with the fandom and everything else, and with another series coming, which I want to finish off with that.
Sure.
Season 2. Serpent song, you already alluded to. You were surprised that you died as early as you did.
Yes, was that the first time I died? Yes, I think it was the first time. Yeah.
Takes shelter with his greatest enemy.
Yes.
Your character knew that they would not sacrifice you. You knew that they were of pure heart enough that they would welcome you in, not with smiling faces, but they would bring you shelter, and that Sokar would destroy them as well as you. That bastard.
Sokar, boy.
I know.
I have a soft spot for Sokar.
David Palfy.
Yes, I do. The character Sokar, I have a soft spot for him. I thought he was badder than me, to tell you the truth.
He was the original Satan.
Yeah, he was bad, man, that guy.
This episode...
But then I got happy because I got to kill him.
Yes, you did. That's correct.
Yeah.
But I don't want to skip too far ahead.
All right.
I love this episode because of the sci-fi conundrum that it gives. You are being presented with an opportunity to vanquish your enemy. And J.R. Bourne, as Martouf and Lantash says, surely you welcome this. And even Apophis says to O'Neill, you know, I'm sure you're relishing in this. And O'Neill says, not really. And I thought that was so telling, because the heroes don't want to see pain come even to their greatest enemy. There is still a piece of them that says, you know what, doesn't mean I have to like you, but I don't want to watch you suffer either.
I got the sense that sympathy was more for the host than for the Goa'uld himself. Even though there by this point there was shared history.
Oh yeah.
So I'm proud of that episode, very much so, because I feel like you could see the difference in personality between the Goa'uld and the host. And I was essentially
Karnak.
doing what Michael B. Jordan just did in Sinners.
Yeah.
I was playing two characters.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of how that show turned out. And I to this day, I still get compliments.
We didn't expect to meet the host. That was kind of wild. And you got to go to a depth there. This guy has been trapped across a chasm in a nightmare of images for thousands of years. He's never found a way out. And all of a sudden, he's allowed to be set free. Part of me, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that damn scene, Peter. Part of me thinks that, right through me, part of me thinks that his spirit was truly set free there, and all that was left after that when he was erected was Apophis. Like the spirit of the host was gone. You get that feeling?
I'm about to make your spine tingle a little more. The year before that was shot, my father died. And I saw him on his deathbed, and he looked exactly like that aged host that my goa'uld inhabited. I saw my father. I saw my father's spirit leaving his body in that scene. My father, he was a shadow of himself by the time he passed, right? He was a great man in real life. But by the time he passed, he was a shadow of himself, rather like that aged...
Yeah, because the symbiote's been tortured. It can't keep up with healing the host, and he advances in age.
And at a certain point, you just have to resign yourself that you're going to fly away home. You're a spirit, you know?
That everyone raised their game up for that episode. Even Terrell, who was sitting right there. I mean, Terrell, wow. Talk about someone who will... playing the doctor, she's like, I'm sorry, he may be the nastiest man who ever lived. He's still my patient.
Yes. I just saw Terrell on something the other day, and
she is always working it. She's on fire.
I know. She's really, really good.
She is something.
Always has been, and still a little cutie.
Yeah, absolutely. On her apple boxes.
Yeah.
DeLuise directed this episode.
Yes, sir.
And you were tied to a bed.
Yeah, that's right. You've heard the stories. I know where this is going.
Would you one more time?
Sure. Yes, I was, I think this was on the last day of shooting, or the last day, certainly, of my character shooting in the episode, and I was booked on a flight to Australia that night. And I was supposed to leave set and go straight to the airport.
Did you have work down there, or?
It was a convention.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah, it was a convention. Just to segue slightly back to Christopher Judge, that's how I got into my very first convention.
Christopher.
They had Judge booked.
Yeah.
Judge couldn't make it. And he suggested me to go. And it was Sydney, Australia. How cool is that?
Was that the first one?
Not that one.
I think it had been earlier.
Yeah, it had been an earlier one, yes. This was the second one, I think. Second time in Australia. But just to give you another Christopher Judge anecdote.
He's always a blessing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were tied to a bed.
Tied to a bed.
That's it.
Yeah. I was due to catch a flight that night, and needless to say, that day I was in every scene. I had a lot of dialogue. I had a lot of work, and then I'm on a 16-hour flight or whatever it is. I forget now. To
it's
Sydney.
A long way to go.
It's a long way, and I think it went. L.A. and then Sydney. I finished my lines. We finished shooting the scene, and DeLuise seemed happy. And he goes, I'd like to thank Peter Williams for his part in the show. And thank you, Peter. Lights went off, leaving me in a straitjacket on a gurney, strapped in.
Immobile.
Now, immobile. But hey, I figured, all right, practical joke.
You have a flight to catch.
But I have a flight to catch.
Man.
Minutes seem longer than
Yeah.
than 60 seconds at that time. And several minutes passed. And I go, hey guys, I have a flight to catch. Let me out of here. Silence. And they dragged it on. They dragged it on. I think they had a driver waiting to take me to the airport. Right?
Oh, better have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the silence went on till I started to feel a little bit nervous. And it was dead silence. Somebody, I don't know if it was deliberate or what, but somebody sneezed or coughed or farted off stage somewhere, and the ice was broken.
Oh,
so
God's
the joke was over. But man, it had me nervous there for a second.
If you don't have a thick skin, you're not going to last on that set.
Not with Peter DeLuise at the helm.
That's it. You have to be willing to have a little bit of a sense of humor. That's what a
word for Peter though. What a nice guy.
Yeah.
They don't come nicer than him.
No.
He's just a
He's an actor's director.
super dude. Yes,
That's
he is.
it.
Yes, he
so
is.
the story goes that they wanted to keep you as a surprise for the end of Jolinar's memories. Can you tell me how they arranged to keep the surprise of Apophis in Jolinar's memories?
Well, I think I was double booked, actually.
Okay.
I had another job, and they were trying to help me make it work.
Okay.
And for which I was grateful. I was a little bit nervous having Dion
Johnstone.
Yes, play my character in makeup. But because he's such a fantastic actor, I didn't want them to see how good he was.
Well, you never know.
You never know,
that's
exactly.
it.
Like he's
Peter, we're good.
We're good, yeah. Dion, say hi to Dion. Dion's a really, really good actor.
excellent.
He's good at a lot of different disciplines. He does Shakespeare, he does classics, he does August Wilson, he does
Unas very well.
all kinds of things.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, he played more than one role
He sure did.
Yeah.
He played several.
on Stargate. Anyway, I had to suck that one. He did his bit and I did my bit, and then the reveal came. And yes, it was. They did approach me about having my credit put at the end, and I had absolutely no problem with it. It was great. The surprise was great.
It gave birth to GateWorld.net.
Yeah, and it gave birth to that my least favorite of all my costumes. The Borg.
The Borg.
The Borg impression.
The 7 of 9 to the extreme.
Yeah.
Did they take a mold of your face?
I think they did, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
they did. And it wasn't the first one either. They did a mold for those plastic hats, too.
Right.
The skull caps, yeah.
Which apparently retain so much heat that, you're just boiling. I had one on. I couldn't believe how much heat escapes through the top of your head.
Yeah,
you don't think about those
that's
things.
That's right.
And it's like, my God. This was a great two-parter for so many of the characters because they're so well established at this point. We know who they all are. And again, it's Peter. It's Apophis twisting the knife more and more, trying to get information out of him, and he can't. That's how united they all are against him. And the reveal that he's suddenly back and involved, I didn't see it. We all knew. Martouf and Lantush, they say it at the end of Serpent's song. This is not the end of him. Sokar will revive him and torture him again and again. Yeah. But we're so preoccupied with saving Jacob. We're so in the thick of it that it's like, it's Apophis. We didn't see it, and it's awesome. What a twist.
Another word for J.R. Bourne, by the way. J.R. Bourne and I were friends before, so I had actually worked with him before, yeah. I thought he had a really cool character. That Martouf character is much beloved in the fandom.
No, very much so.
Yeah.
His death, a fractured fandom, it cleaved it in two. Half of fandom loves the episode, and the other half hates it. There's no more polarizing an episode of SG-1 than Crossroads. That's a wild show.
Right.
And yeah, it was very controversial at the time. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, there's just when the character came back, You were risen from the dead.
Right.
So heavy prosthetics.
Right.
So that was a nightmare.
Logistically speaking,
Okay.
and ego-wise it was too, because really only half of my face was showing at that
That's
point.
true, too.
I did realize they had told me it was going to regenerate in the sarcophagus, so it improved from there.
It did get smaller.
Yeah.
But only so much. That's the thing.
Yes.
They wanted to show, you have to have some of it there, because this is something the character is carrying with him now.
Yes.
And is a direct result of SG-1.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So that's,
yes.
on balance, that's a really, it was a cool idea. And the fact that all of your military armor, they were all red colored now at this point. Like you have been reborn out of the fires of Natu.
Right. That's when the harem showed up too, right?
Oh my God, yes. They were hanging off of you.
Yeah.
For sure.
One of my enduring memories.
Jeez. No, the character was definitely on his, I think, final path at that point, where when enemies came along, that was a great show, because it's like, we've got to get rid of this guy once and for all. And the Replicators ultimately helped do it. Any memories of that last? One of the cool twists of that is that he convinces Teal'c to come back to his side with drugs. He transforms him and turns him back over. And then even after you're gone, we have to spend an episode releasing Teal'c from that grasp, and then you and Christopher and Tony have a wonderful flashback episode in Threshold. Any memories of that?
I had no memories of that one.
Okay.
I got to tell you.
Okay.
It's worth revisiting for me.
Yeah.
Threshold. I'm going to make a note of that.
It's a good show.
I see, you know what?
Performances.
I did not like Replicators' storyline.
You didn't like how they took you out?
I did not like it. I wanted SG-1 to do it, not Replicators. I felt it would have had more, more of a resonance with the audience.
Poetic.
Yes, rather than have something as mechanical as these little insects.
For sure.
Never did like it. Never did like Replicators. And I didn't find them scary enough, to tell you the truth. I find them a little too mechanical and not organic in any way. And part of what brought me to Stargate was, emotionally, as a fan, as a viewer, was the organic nature of it. Humans on another planet, technology tended to distance my emotions from the actual product.
Okay.
That's just me. I didn't like the Replicator storyline.
I get that. That's a really valid point, because you have been chasing them the entire show, and then the Asgard's enemy are the ones that knock you off. So there is a certain cop-out to that from a not to say that it wasn't one that you didn't see coming, because it was definitely one that we didn't see coming, but yeah, it would have been nice. I can see that if SG-1 had been the one to vanquish you after all.
Yes, I think they deserved it.
Right? As an audience member.
As an audience, yeah.
Yeah.
The questions about the actual impact with the planet.
Is he really gone?
Yes, kind of remain for me.
Really?
Yeah, they do. But I don't know whether that's just fanciful, wishful thinking, and my becoming accustomed to the fact that Apophis always returns.
There was a conversation that was had. I can't remember with which of the writers was there. There's a reason that we don't see the villains always die.
Yeah.
But sometimes it'd be nice for the actors to have some kind of closure. You know.
I don't think they ever take that into consideration. But I'm thinking about the actual audience.
Yeah.
Not so much the actor. And then, by the time Baal shows up, Baal has the whole cloning technology that I don't think it would be a stretch for Apophis also to have had a whiff of that. Hey, let me just leave that there.
Yeah, Ball had his own team of Gould scientists. I'm sure Apophis had one or two
It must,
as well.
it must have had something.
Did you see the ships he was building?
Yeah.
God's sakes.
Yeah, and he was the Gould of record for the longest time. So he could take out Sokar, he could take out.
Once his brother was gone, that was it.
Yeah.
He owned the sky.
He owned the sky. So there's no reason he shouldn't have had some kind of access to some of that technology that ultimately Baal controlled.
One of my favorite scenes of you is in season 6. It's an episode that Christopher did. This is the first he wrote. He had a story by.
I think it's 8.
Season 6 was The Changeling.
Oh, really? I don't know why I thought it was 8. Sorry.
Season 8 you come back as well.
Oh, do I?
And he wrote in season 8 as well.
Oh, okay.
So in season 6, you come in as a doctor, except it's Apophis.
Yes. All right.
And his eyes glow.
Yes.
If that's not my favorite moment, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking of this. I believe I mentioned this to you up on stage as well. That scene where you turn around to him in your Children of the Gods garb, and you say, I may be dead, but there's a part of you that will always believe that I'll be in the underworld waiting for you. And there is something very tadpole deep about that idea where no matter how much Teal'c has shaken his belief in those beings, some part of him way deep down can never let go. And I can believe it because I can see that in myself happening as well. Am I a believer in certain spiritual things? Yes. But there is that seed of doubt at the same time that what if I'm wrong? And that is just pernicious. And I think it speaks to the true humanity of Teal'c. It's I've done this thing for the right reasons. I know I have. But really, what if there's a piece of me that still thinks that it wasn't the right thing to do? That's scary.
Yeah. Give credit to Christopher for leaving you with that.
Yeah.
Because that's a tough one to pull off. That's a very subtle thing. Residual sentiment. Subtle thing to play.
It's so ingrained in him from childhood.
Yeah.
This is all he knew until Braytek came along and shook him of it.
Right.
And there's just certain demons that we just can't let go.
Yeah. You know what? I learn every time I talk to somebody like you that still remembers the entire canon.
I don't know about that, but a fair bit of it, for sure. And we got you back twice more. We got you back again in Moebius.
Yes.
They put you in, they didn't make you cut your hair this time.
No.
They put it underneath.
No, they gave me a fake beard, which
of course, the second time
will always look fake to me.
No, you did that well. It was an alternate reality with the it wasn't the go-to. They had there was one in season 3 where you played the alternate version of yourself as well.
Yes, that's right.
The alternates, I think you probably may hold a record for the number of alternate characters of the same character that you played. Because it was just such a good role. It's bring him back, let's go get it. And then they brought you back in Continuum. Joel Goldsmith.
That was a whole second and a half.
Man.
Yeah.
I remember I saw Continuum with the cast and crew.
Right.
In the screening in Vancouver for it.
Yeah.
And you come on screen and Cliff says his line to you, and then he turns to Teal'c and he says, "Yes, the first leader of the Jaffa Nation, Free Jaffa Nation." You turn to Christopher and you go, "That's exactly right." Oh man, the whole theater just laughed. They thought that it was hilarious.
Sholva.
He was your Shova, and he shall remain.
That's of all the things that all the fans say to me on the road, it's that word. Even more than Jaffa Cree. They go Sholva.
Well, because you said it with such conviction.
Yeah.
It's like, you bastard. That's really what he's saying.
It's one of those words that should be in the dictionary.
Yes, it should be, absolutely, right next to Creed.
Yeah.
This has been a delight. I could go on and on. There's a couple of things that I want to wrap up with. Mm-hmm. We have a 4th Stargate series coming.
I have heard.
You have?
I have heard about it. I read about it.
What are your thoughts?
Tell you the truth, I think I was in Czechia when the news broke. And my thoughts are, it's about bloody time.
Yes.
To tell you the truth, because this thing has legs, it still has legs, and the universe is infinite. And enough time has gone by to have seen this thing regenerate itself with an entirely new generation showing up at the conventions. There are young people who weren't born when the last episode was shot, coming to these conventions and knowing lines, knowing characters, in costume. It's a surefire thing. I hope there is enough of a nod to what has come up to led up to this.
An acknowledgement.
And perhaps even the follow-on. Yes, there are selfish reasons, but even without those reasons, I hope it is successful for everyone's sake.
Stargate SG-1 returned to Netflix, and within its 2nd week, it had cracked the top 10 on Netflix streaming.
Yes.
It's still being discovered by people,
yes.
And people are still falling in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it continue to work as well as it does, in your opinion?
For me,
yeah,
I'd like to give credit where credit is, to those who think they deserve credit. But I think it's even more simple than that. I think the romance of believing in life on other worlds and in other dimensions is a real thing. Our imaginations have only been spurred on by advances in technology, the spinning, the centripetal forces of where we find ourselves as humans on this planet now. We are seeing things that we took for granted just dissolve in front of our eyes or spin out of control in actuality. We're seeing conventions that we fought hard for crumble. We've seen things that we didn't think could happen. We've seen cars learning to park themselves. We've seen
mind-boggling.
Driverless vehicles, not to mention the winds of politics that are blowing globally.
Talk of alien life. Open dialogue in Congress. It's like,
exactly, yeah.
What?
That's right. We've seen various answers to the Area 54 question.
Yeah.
We've seen science fiction shows come and go without the success of Stargate being replicated, to use a phrase.
So is it just it has a good anchor?
No, here's what it is for me. It is the connection that we as humans have to everything that exists around us. And by that I mean the universe we see ourselves in. We've now glimpsed into other solar systems.
Yeah.
We have now counted planets around distant suns. We have now seen asteroids swinging far away and coming back.
Right on back.
Getting closer every time. We have seen statistical possibilities calculated in Russia and in America about possibilities of impact. We have seen artificial intelligence recreations of what ancient impacts looked like. Actual excavations of crater rims and radiocarbon dating of residue left in these crater rims that give us an insight into previous impact points. We've seen. Just the other day, we saw a humanoid robot walk out in front of television cameras. We see.
A lot.
I could go on. We see a lot
to lose our mooring to.
But you know what? We're only human. We still need the recreation of audiovisual stimuli created by our brains that we can comprehend. We still need things that will stretch our imagination but are comprehensible. I think Stargate fit that mold perfectly, so did Star Trek. Star Wars seems to have lost it a little bit. They've gotten very fancy. I think Star Trek and Star Wars are still where it's at.
Sci-fi is our dream phase.
Sci-fi, yeah. We've seen science fiction and nerds become cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Whoever thought that was going to happen?
Yeah.
I didn't. Man, Peter, this has been wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
For everything you have done for this fandom. Thank you for continuing to show up for this show and for the audience who tunes in to watch it.
Really enjoy meeting the fans. Really enjoy it.
It means the world to have you as part of this.
Yeah.
And to have you buy into this role as much as you could have been, you know what? I did that character. He was great, but it's in the back. You embrace him.
I love it.
As wild and...
Love him more now than I did then, tell you the truth. Really do.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, David.
For everything.
Cheers.